being targeted, and also a worry over whether this could also, become a little bit communal, because that's something that also many are talking about as far as the violence that we've seen and the violence that we've reported, especially from Rangpur and the incident in Rangpur. So this is an ongoing protest. It's a very difficult time for Bangladesh, and those across the border in West Bengal also are watching it. India is watching it very closely. India, of course, keeping a close eye on the developments in Bangladesh, because remember, this is our neighborhood, and therefore this is, of course, something that, like, Ghazali was reporting, that seemed to have been in control but seems to have spiraled again in the last 24 hours or 48 hours.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us with all those details, Saurabh and Ghazali, getting us all the very latest. And of course, the protesting students have announced that march to Dhaka, like Ghazali was mentioning. Switching tracks now to the United Kingdom, and the Prime Minister has warned the far-right protesters on Sunday that they would regret participating in England's worst rioting in 13 years. Mr. Starmer's statements come as more violence broke out across the country in the wake of a stabbing rampage at a dance class that left 3 girls dead and many more wounded. Now, British Prime Minister will hold an emergency meeting with the police chiefs after days of that violent anti-immigration protests that have intensified, with buildings and vehicles torched and hotels holding asylum seekers targeted. Riots have erupted across towns and cities in the last week after that attack that took place in Southport, now with 420 people arrested so far.
One month into office as Prime Minister of Britain, Sir Keir Starmer's biggest challenge is currently underway. Britain has not seen rioting and social unrest of this kind after riots broke out in multiple cities by far-right protesters and anti-immigrant protesters. Cities such as Manchester, Hull, Belfast, Bristol, Stoke-on-Trent, even parts of London has seen sporadic, spontaneous protesters disrupting violence, breaking public property, attacking the police. 90 arrests have been made thus far, and on this weekend, if you are driving across cities such as London and other main cities in the UK, there are the greater chances that you may be giving way to fastly moving, roving policemen in their cars with sirens burning. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has said that these protests are sowing hate. He and the Home Secretary and the entire Labour government that has been newly elected in Britain has offered full support to the police teams to arrest, contain any sort of social unrest that's happening across the cities over the next few days.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest, it is organised, violent thuggery. And it has no place on our streets or online.
Occupants, mainly tourists, at a South Yorkshire hotel stared in fear and worry from the top floor as rioters attacked that particular hotel in South Yorkshire in England, otherwise a sleepy town and a calm town and a tourist attraction. Through bricks, broke glass windows, even managed to have a fire break out in the hotel. Arrests have been made, and the protests in that location have been contained.
Well, it's very shocking to see this sort of racial violence motivated by far-right-wing Elizabeth extremists. I didn't see anything was bad for many years, but it needs to be dealt with robustly.
A rapid response process has been initiated whereby emergency security will be provided across mosques in Britain after racist and anti-immigration protests have worried and disturbed Britain after many, many years. Radhika Iyer in London, NDTV.
Now, the foreign ministers of G7 major democracies have called on all parties involved in the current conflict in the Middle East to avoid actions that could lead to an escalation. The G7 ministers expressed strong concern about the recent events that could lead to a wider regional spread of the crisis, starting with Lebanon. Tensions heightened on Sunday in the Middle East, with the United States moving warships to the region to defend Israel if Iran attacks, while several Western governments urgently told their citizens to leave Lebanon as Hezbollah launched a barrage of strikes targeting Israel. And with that, we're stepping into a very short break. Back with a whole lot more on the other side with my colleague Kitty. Stay with us.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Razr 50 Ultra comes with Google Gemini.
Hello and welcome to India Sense, where I speak with global opinion makers.
The United States has made a strategic decision over the last 20 years to move closer to India.
Now, a $7 trillion economy seems a perfectly conceivable number.
If you want to be a national party, it's that you sort of accept the way the world is rather than want to endlessly hark back to how it was.
Modi is promoting the digitization of the economy, which is accelerating growth in the country.
Get ready for the ride of your life. NDTV brings you the NDTV Auto Show with me, Mugdha Mishra. From the fastest supercars to the sleekest new energy vehicles to your trusted daily ride, we cover it all. Every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7. Your next great escape starts here. The biggest democratic exercise in the world. Team NDTV covers it from ground zero.
BJP really had to fight a tough election this time.
Unprecedented exercise. Unmatched coverage.
There is no dispute. Janta ko decide karna hai.
From polling to counting, NDTV brought you the most trustworthy news and updates. Elections mean NDTV.
NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number 1 in both online and offline reach in India. Beating all its competition, NDTV stands for trust. Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
After a great victory by Indian team, and today we are reporting from Mohali International Airport where we are showing these visuals. Arshdeep हमारे साथ हैं.
वो performance सही सारे दी थे बढ़िया results मिले.
We are in the city of Kanpur today because they have their champion back home, Kuldeep Yadav.
Desperation for each and everyone to go there and win the.
Hi there, a very good afternoon. You're watching NDTV 24/7. My name is Kitty Behel. Let's start this edition at 2 with the headlines at the top of this hour. After 14 deaths were reported in a Delhi shelter home, the Delhi High Court has today directed Delhi Government Social Welfare Secretary to file a report on the conditions of living in the shelter home. Supreme Court takes no more to cognizance of the Delhi coaching centre deaths, issues notices to centre and the Delhi government. The court has slammed authorities for failing to regulate coaching centres, accusing them of playing with the lives of children. The court also said coaching centres have become death chambers. Civic apathy kills again. In Maharashtra, a child had fallen into an open manhole and died. 4-year-old died in Ahmednagar district. The manhole lid was allegedly not installed properly. It's a setback for the Aam Aadmi Party in Supreme Court. The top court has said that the Lieutenant Governor can appoint all the men to the MCD and the LG does not need the Delhi government's advice. Over 370 people have died in the Wayanad landslides. Union Environment Minister has blamed the Kerala government. Bhupendra Yadav says Kerala government has not been cooperating with centre, and also Kollam MP to NDTV says the centre is not ready to hear Kerala government. Global cues trigger massive market sell-off. Asian markets plunge. Nifty and Sensex slide over 2.5%. Rupee weakens to record low. Starting this edition with a top focus, after 14 deaths were reported from a Delhi shelter home, the Delhi High Court has today directed the Delhi Government Social Welfare Secretary to visit the shelter and file a report on the conditions of living in the shelter home. The court has also ordered the Delhi Jal Board to test the quality of the water and condition of water and sewer pipelines in the Asha Kiran shelter home located in Rohini. Now, we are learning at this moment, the court also has said that such a large number of deaths in the shelter home in a short period cannot be coincidence. The court has said there are too many deaths in a short span of time that have taken place in the shelter home. 14 deaths in number. It can't be a coincidence. We are learning now the court has also directed the authorities to decongest the shelter home. That is the latest coming in. My colleague Shreya also now joins us on the broadcast, getting us more on that. Shreya, we do understand, well, there is a war of words also between the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party that is happening on this very issue. But the court now has asked for a report from the Delhi Government Social Welfare Secretary, and strong observations now that have been made in the court. The court has also said that it's not a coincidence that so many deaths have taken place. What more is coming out?
That's right. So the Social Welfare Secretary has to mandatorily visit the premises of this government-run shelter home tomorrow in Rohini, and has also asked the Delhi Jal Board to inspect the water conditions, the quality of water, and also the conditions of the sewer pipes, because as per the health reports of these inmates, several of them were suffering from tuberculosis, and the staffs and residents of the neighbouring area of this particular facility, shelter home, they have complained that this particular shelter home has been grappling with bad quality water, poor quality water, nutrient deficient food, and because this shelter is highly overcrowded, the court today has also stressed the need for relocation, to relocate some of the inmates to a separate area, because this facility is extremely overcrowded and it is highly understaffed. The inmates are not getting the basic facilities of the expected standards, and tomorrow obviously the Social Welfare Secretary has to visit the shelter home, and the Delhi Jal Board has to inspect the condition of the sewer pipelines in that area, and will have to submit a report by day after tomorrow, and the court will take further action based on the report submitted by the Delhi Jal Board, and of course court has also stressed the need for not only decongestion of the facility, but also to take curative measures. This is very important, and there will be further further actions taken based on the report submitted by tomorrow, by day after tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right, Shreya. Thank you so much for getting us all those details there. Please keep an eye on this very developing story. We'll get back to you later for more. Meanwhile, these are strong observations that were made by the court today with regards to the 14 deaths that have taken place in this shelter home in Delhi's Rohini. Well, we are shifting our focus now to some more news that we're tracking at this point in time. The centre is all set to bring a bill in the parliament this week to amend the 1995 law governing Waqf boards to ensure more accountability and transparency in their functioning. And as per sources, the reforms also include mandatory inclusion of women in the Waqf boards. It is being learned that the move has come in the backdrop of demands from within the Muslim community. The bill to amend the Waqf Act will make it mandatory for Waqf boards to register their properties with district collectors to ensure their actual valuation. Meanwhile, the All India Muslim Personal Law Board has objected to any proposed changes to the Waqf Act, saying that any change in the Act which alters the nature of Waqf properties or makes it easier for the government or any individual to usurp them will not be acceptable. AIM-PLB spokesperson SQR Ilyas has said the board is contemplating legal redress if the government makes any sweeping changes to the act. Well, Samajwadi Party Chief Akhilesh Yadav also has said that his party will oppose the centre's move to curb the powers of the Waqf board.
मुसलमान भाइयों को कैसे उनके अधिकारों को छीना जाए, उनकी अधिकार जो मिले हैं, जिन्हें आज़ादी के अधिकार हैं या उनके स्वतंत्र जो अधिकार हैं, उनके अपने धर्म को लेकर के अपनी कामकाज की व्यवस्था को बनाए रखने के लिए, और केवल वक्फ बोर्ड नहीं, हमारे मुख्यमंत्री देखिए कितने समझदार हैं सरकार के, उन्हें उर्दू में ये पता लगा कि नुज़ूल उर्दू शब्द है, उन्हें समझाते रहे अधिकारी के नज़ूल का मतलब कुछ और है, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा नहीं, नज़ूल मतलब मुसलमानों की जमीन है ये.
Me is Pramod Tiwari, Rajya Sabha MP sir. The government has been planning to bring 40 amendments in the Waqf Code. How do you see that?
ये तो सिर्फ मीडिया में है. अगर उन्हें लाना है तो पहले जिस समुदाय के लिए ला रहे हैं उससे बात करें, फिर ये बात करें हम लोगों से, और हम लोगों से बात करने के पहले अपने सहयोगियों से पूछ लें जेडीयू का रुख क्या है, तेलुगु देशम का रुख क्या है, फिर बात.
Well, inclusion of women, verification of disputed land are some of the changes that are set to be brought to the Waqf law. However, we do understand the opposition parties as well as Muslim boards have raised objection to the changes. What more changes are expected to be brought in to the Waqf law? That remains to be seen. What we are learning at the moment is that the amendments in the bill are expected to be brought in this week itself. My colleague Vasudha is also now joining us on the broadcast, getting us more on that. Vasudha, what more information is coming out about the proposed changes to the Waqf bill? And we are learning that by the end of this session itself, the bill is expected to be brought into the parliament.
Absolutely, Kitty. It's not going to be today, but of course it is going to be somewhere this week. Remember that on 7th, the budget is going to be approved today. The demand for grants for various sectors, including health, education, all of that is getting approved. So clearly that is on top of the government's mind. But of course, this bill is very important. It's very contentious because the Modi cabinet has already cleared 40 amendments, and these amendments are to do with reducing the power of tribunals, which the government feels reduces the power of courts interfering in the matters of Waqf properties. Other than that, they also want to ensure that Waqf boards, there are about 30 Waqf boards across the country, they want to ensure that these boards are gender inclusive. They want to ensure that there are at least 2 women in each of these boards and also in the Waqf council. Other than that, they want to ensure that some of the provisions which they deem unconstitutional, which are part of these, which is part of this bill. Now remember, this act came into force in 1954. After that, it was repealed and a new act was brought in 1995. There were a fresh set of amendments that were introduced in 2013. So some of the provisions that were deemed unconstitutional by the existing government, those will also be sort of changed, and basically to curb, to make them more transparent, accountable, and to ensure that the arbitrariness of the bill, implementation of it is removed, and it is favourable to common Muslims, is what the government is saying. But I also spoke to the opposition MP, specifically to Mr. Owaisi, and he clearly said that there is nothing, no part of the bill that is act that is unconstitutional. unconstitutional, and this is also one way of the government to ensure that it takes over uncontested contested properties, specifically mosques. And he also specifically pointed out this one particular thing, that Waqf boards and councils have been on a state of decline, and there hasn't been much of grants from the central government in the last 10 years. So again, this is going to be a clash of narratives. We're expecting this bill somewhere around 7th or 8th. 7th is when the budget gets cleared, but of course this is the Modi government and we can expect this anytime this week. This is also the last week of the budget session, and remember, this government in the last few years has had this tradition of introducing the most important bills on the last day, including the very contentious CEC bill, or for that matter even the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita was introduced on the last day of the winter session. So clearly that could be expected, but of course 5 more days. This session is there till the 12th of August, and we're expecting this to come around 8th is what we hear.
So Vasudha, what are you learning? Was this already in the works? As soon as the Modi 3.0 government was sworn in, this is one of the important decisions that we are looking at, that is being made by the government, by the centre, and is expected to be done. The bill, as you're saying, is expected to be brought within this parliament session, before the parliament session ends. Was this already in the works? Any information that is coming out about that the government was already planning to bring this, as soon as it came back to power?
Yes, Kitty, this has been in the works for the last 3 years. I remember even when Smriti Irani was a minority minister, she was working on this along with the secretary then, and of course the WCD secretary was also given the additional charge of minority affairs. So this has been in works for the last 3 years. Remember that there is a case that's already going on in the Delhi High Court with regard to the Waqf properties, and there are 120 petitions which have been, which are challenging the implementation of the Act. But at the same time, the Supreme Court has also somehow dismissed some of these petitions regarding the Waqf properties. This was also pointed to us by Mr. Owaisi, but this has been in the works, and the government believes that this will help common Muslims, and it also believes that there is a certain section of influential Muslim community persons which are completely in hold of Waqf properties, and which is why it has not been able to create that kind of revenues. But of course the opposition is saying that the government has also stopped giving grants to Waqf properties, which is why they are on a state of decline. So it is going to be important to see how politically this pans out. Today the opposition, I did notice, has been a little careful because the bill is not out yet, and we did see in the case of subcategorization, the observations of the Supreme Court, several opposition parties came out and gave very different statements, and then they had to refine their stance, and they and refined it when it came to the creamy layer. So they're being very careful about it. So when we ask them for bites, except Akhilesh Yadav, most of them are saying that let the bill come out and then we'll speak about it. So clearly this has been in the works. The government is very confident that all the amendments that have been brought in have been done so with consultation with Muslim clergy, with Muslim stakeholders, with Muslim scholars as well, and also Muslim judiciary, part of Muslim, ex-judges. So clearly the government is very confident, and it wants to create this impression that it is not anti-Muslim at all. It is in fact pro-common Muslim, and it will also break this whole cartel of influential people who are completely having control over Waqf properties. But of course the opposition is going to oppose it tooth and nail, and we'll see that play out once the bill is introduced in the parliament.
That the government of course is trying to give here, but the opposition definitely is in no mood to take it. The opposition parties and the Muslim boards, that we understand, given the statements that are coming out at the moment on this very issue, are quite they are opposed to it, and they are saying that they are not going to accept any amendments or the changes that are going to be brought in the Waqf Act. Meanwhile, thank you so much, Vasudha, for getting us all those details there. That is the latest coming in at this point in time. We are shifting our focus now to some more news that we are tracking in connection with the Delhi coaching centre deaths. The Supreme Court has taken suo motu cognizance of the matter. The Supreme Court now has issued notices to centre as well as the Delhi government. Well, the Supreme Court has asked the government what safety norms have been prescribed with regard to the coaching centres operations, and also coaching centres have become death chambers. This is one of the important observations that were made by the court today. Well, the Supreme Court has issued notices to the centre as well as the Delhi government over the death of 3 students who had drowned in the flooded basement of an IS coaching centre in Rajendra Nagar amid heavy rain last month. Well, my colleague Sunil Prabhu is getting us more on this story.
So today, as the Supreme Court heard this very important matter of a coaching federation which had wanted, there was a levy relating to Mukherjee Nagar where the payment had to be done and they wanted some relief. The Supreme Court said no, and in fact, suo moto decided to issue notices not only to the Delhi government through the Chief Secretary, but also to the centre on this very, very important issue. They said the young people, as you pointed out, have lost their lives. There has to be compliance in terms of coaching institutes for the safety of the students, otherwise they should hold it online. And they've in fact issued an order saying that they must comply with the master plan of 2021 of Delhi, all coaching centres. And it's in this context that the Supreme Court came down heavily and wanted the centre as well as the state to give their response on this very important issue so as to ensure that in future young students, young aspirants do not face the same trauma as that unfortunate incident took place in Rajendra Nagar.
All right, we'll get you more on that. Meanwhile, some more news that we are tracking today. In a big setback for the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi, the Supreme Court today ruled that the LG can nominate aldermen in the MCD without Delhi government's aid and advice. The Lieutenant Governor's power to nominate members to the civic body is a statutory power and not an executive power. As per the court, the Supreme Court has said that Delhi LG can nominate aldermen to MCD and the LG does not need the advice of the Delhi government. The LG can act as per his discretion. Well, my colleague Sunil Prabhu gets us more. We also have a reaction coming in from the BJP on that.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो निर्णय आया है उसने इस बात को साफ कर दिया है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट के लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर ने कानून के अंतर्गत ही एल्डरमैन का मनोनयन किया था, जिस पर जैसे आम आदमी पार्टी की आदत है हर मसले पर उन्हें आरोप लगाने हैं, दूसरों को कटघरे में खड़ा करना है, तो उनकी उस राजनीति को एक सिरे से नकार दिया गया है सुप्रीम कोर्ट के इस निर्णय द्वारा। और अब स्टैंडिंग कमेटी का तुरंत गठन होना चाहिए जिससे दिल्ली की जो समस्याएं हैं उनके बारे में गंभीरता से काम हो सके।
The Supreme Court will be delivering after reserving its judgment. Now it's going to be nearly 15 months. The people of Delhi, as you can see, are suffering with issues like desilting and various other day-to-day bread and butter issues for the MCD. The Lieutenant Governor, at that time, as you rightly pointed out, after the BJP lost power, decided to appoint 10 aldermen, basically nominated members in the MCD Council, which will have voting rights when it comes to standing committees. This was contested by the Delhi government because the Lieutenant Governor did it on his own without the aid and advice of the cabinet in this regard. And that's something that is being under contest. As you rightly pointed out, the Chief Justice of India had said that this will destabilize a democratically elected municipal corporation at that time. The LG's lawyer, Mr. Sanjay Jain, had argued, saying that what has been a practice doesn't necessarily need to be followed on a continuous basis. But be that as it may, between the fight between the Lieutenant Governor and the AAP and the Delhi government, hopefully today it will resolve a number of issues, ensure that the people of Delhi in particular get governance, because this is critical. This is important in terms of aid and advice, for a cabinet. The Lieutenant Governors, do they have far-reaching powers, or is it always on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers? So it's in that context we'll have to wait and see how things play out.
Well, big updates coming in on that. Meanwhile, some more news now. This is from Maharashtra. A 4-year-old child died after falling into a manhole while he was playing in the Mukund Nagar area of Ahmed Nagar district in Maharashtra. CCTV video of the incident is also surfaced. The deceased Samar Sheikh lost his life allegedly due to the manhole lid that wasn't installed properly. Those are the visuals on your TV screens where this 4-year-old child could be seen falling into this manhole whose lid that we are learning wasn't really installed properly, and due to which this incident has taken place. The child fell into the manhole and died.
A very unfortunate incident unfolded yesterday in Ahmednagar where a 4-year-old child fell into a manhole. In fact, this manhole was not properly covered. The cover was not intact, as a result of which the boy fell into the manhole. In fact, to post that, of course, his parents were searching for him. Later, the CCTV footage showed his fall. In fact, when we spoke to the SP of Ahmednagar, he said that this is not a manhole. In fact, this is a lid of a water tank that gave away, and unfortunately the boy fell inside it. However, most people, the onlookers, say that this is a manhole which has been managed by the civic authorities there. Unfortunately, though, the police officials say that while an FIR will be registered, it will be registered against private people who are responsible for the premises and responsible for taking care of this manhole and the water tank. That's what the police officials have told us. But we'll have to wait and see, will accountability be fixed against any of the civic authorities or government officials, because it's not the first time that manhole-related deaths have been taking place, not just in a place like Ahmednagar, but across Maharashtra. Bombay High Court had also earlier wrapped civic authorities over number of deaths that happen as a result of manhole cover missing or not being intact, especially during monsoons. But certainly this has fallen into deaf ears, which is why more such incidents are continuing to happen. This time in Ahmednagar, where a 4-year-old child who was playing outside his residence fell inside a manhole because the protective grille was not intact.
Shifting our focus to the updates on the Wayanad landslides. Over 370 people have died in Wayanad landslides, but politics, it seems, is being played out over the issue. It's Centre versus Kerala government. Over 373 deaths that we are learning of at the moment. The numbers could rise further. Well, the Union Minister Bhupendra Yadav has spoken to NDTV and has blamed the Kerala government. He said that the disaster took place because the state government allowed illegal activities. He's also said the Kerala government has not been cooperating with Centre. And meanwhile, we also have had a conversation with Kollam MP, who's said that the centre has not been ready to hear the Kerala government. Well, Kollam MP N.K. Premachandran has also spoken exclusively to NDTV. Listen in.
Wayanad in Kerala is reeling under unspeakable tragedy with over 300 people dead due to landslides. A lot of it is being blamed on reckless commercial activities. Joining me now is Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav. Thank you, Mr. Yadav, for speaking to NDTV. I remember you went to Wayanad when the man versus wild conflict was at its peak. How do you see something like this disaster that has happened in Wayanad, sir?
जो मेन रीज़न सामने निकल कर के आ रहा है वो इस चीज़ को दिखा रहा है कि वहाँ पर लगातार इलीगल ह्यूमन हैबिटेट को बसाने का काम किया, टूरिज़्म के नाम पर एनक्रोचमेंट करने का काम किया। इको सेंसिटिव जोन का जो प्लान होना था वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने प्रॉपर्ली तैयार नहीं किया और ये सब चीज़ें न्यूज़पेपर रिपोर्ट के अंतर्गत लगातार आई है। वेस्टर्न घाट का जो पूरा सेंसिटिव एरिया, क्योंकि वहाँ पर रेनफॉल ज़्यादा है, भूमि का जो है वो शैलो लैंड है और रिवर एरिया का जो विशेष रूप से ज़्यादा है और बहुत बड़ी संख्या में पेड़ों के काटने का काम हुआ है। इसको प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए हमारी मिनिस्ट्री के द्वारा नोटिफिकेशन में निकाला गया था और बाद में चूँकि ये स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का सब्जेक्ट है, लैंड की ऑनर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट होती है, तो हमने कहा था कि आप इसमें लोगों के ग्रीवेंसेस को पूरा करके जो फॉर्मर डीजी संजय कुमार है उनकी कमेटी को रिपोर्ट दीजिए। उसको भी देने का काम नहीं किया गया। मुझे लगता है कि चूँकि लैंड ऑनर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट है फॉरेस्ट की, उनको इको सेंसिटिव जोन की जो गाइडलाइंस है उनका पालन करना चाहिए और पालन करने के साथ ही साथ उनको इस बात का ध्यान देना चाहिए कि ये जो एरियाज़ हैं इसमें इलीगल जो बस्तियां बसाते हैं लोकल प्रोटेक्शन के दबाव में, और दूसरा जो इलीगल माइनिंग है ये बड़ा इशू है, इसको उनको एड्रेस करना चाहिए। इसको प्रॉपर एड्रेस करने पर ही हम नेचर को बचा सकेंगे। और दूसरा, देश भर में हम लोगों ने ट्री आउटसाइड फॉरेस्ट लगाने के लिए भी और डिग्रेडेड फॉरेस्ट के लिए भी एक पेड़ माँ के नाम अभियान चलाया है। मुझे लगता है इस तरह के अभियान हमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा चलाने चाहिए और कम से कम उन एरियाज़ में जहाँ मिट्टी का कटाव पेड़ों के कटने के कारण होता है वहाँ ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा पेड़ लगाने चाहिए।
सर, ये ESZ नोटिफिकेशन जो है इसको एक्सपेडाइट करने के लिए सेंटर क्या करिए? बिकॉज वेस्टर्न घाट्स
देखो, इसके लिए जो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन को कराने के लिए एक चीज़ तो कही गई थी कि आप अपने गाँव को फाइनलाइजेशन करिए, बाद में वो लोग लगातार बदलते रहे। हमारे पास भी रिप्रेजेंटेशन आते रहे। मैं वायनाड गया तो वहाँ के चर्च वगैरह के भी रिप्रेजेंटेशन आते रहे। तो मैंने उन्हें कहा कि भाई आप स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के साथ इस पे एक सही तरीके से हमें रिपोर्ट भिजवाइए। फिर बाद में मैंने फॉर्मर DG संजय कुमार जी के नेतृत्व में कमेटी का भी गठन किया। वो भी लगातार 1 साल तक जा रहे हैं, पर जो रिपोर्ट्स स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स को देने चाहिए, जो सबमिशन देने चाहिए, वो निश्चित रूप से वो देने में देरी कर रहे हैं। उनको अपना एक जिम्मेदारी पूरी करनी चाहिए। एक बार होने के बाद इसको हम फाइनलाइजेशन कर देंगे।
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. That was Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav saying that the state government in Kerala has not been cooperating when it comes to giving submissions of reports. There is a central committee that's already in place and that is working on the ESZ notification. With camera person Sanjay, this is Vasudha Venugopal for NDTV.
No, the state government has already unanimously passed the resolution in the state legislative assembly that to extend the area or exempt the area, some area from the ecologically sensitive area. That is a unanimous resolution passed by the state legislative assembly. The government has to consider it. Now they have already declared 133 villages that was existence as per the Kasturi Rangan report. Our suggestion is, because the habitation of the people there and so many other issues were there, so it is after having an expert committee study, the state government has suggested to have an amendment to the ecologically sensitive area, so it has to be exempted some particular area. Unfortunately, the government is not hearing the mindset of the people or the will of the people of the state of Kerala. Instead of that, they are unilaterally declaring it as ecologically sensitive area. That is the reason by which we are opposing. We are not opposing, we are making a suggestion to the government to kindly examine it. See this, we can very well convince the government of India that it cannot be done because of so many not political reasons, social conditions of that particular area.
They are also saying that the state government is hesitating in submitting the reports as well that needs to be prepared for Western Ghats. They've been constantly saying that they should.
This is actually on the basis of the Madhav Gadkal report. The Kasturi Rangan committee has been appointed and they have submitted the report, on which government of Kerala has also conducted a study by appointing an expert committee. That expert committee found out some solutions that we have submitted to the government of India. Unfortunately, the government of India is not taking into consideration the views of the government of Kerala, the people of Kerala, considering the huge density of population and so many institutions and all these in a particular area. Declaring it as an ecologically sensitive area means it is very difficult to convince them and it is very difficult to make it practical.
And it's an NDTV initiative, Care for Kerala. You can also donate and help those who suffer in the Wayanad landslides. We have also given the trust name, the Hope Trust, and bank details on your TV screens there. Well, we are shifting our focus now to some more news that we're tracking. This is from Himachal Pradesh. 13 people have died and over 40 people are still missing in the cloudburst in Himachal Pradesh's Mandi, Kullu and Shimla districts that took place on the 31st of July. Army, NDRF, SDRF, CISF and Himachal Pradesh Police are all deployed to rescue those who could be stranded or trapped. Sniffer dogs, JCB machines have also been deployed to find those missing. Drones are also being used in the rescue operations, which are still underway. Well, what is also being learned is that rescuers have now intensified the search operations by deploying more machinery and other equipments. Well, over 30 people are still believed to be missing in Samej village in the Rampur subdivision alone. All right, we'll get you more on that in just a bit. Meanwhile, some news coming in from Assam. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has said that his government will bring a new law that would impose a life term on people found guilty of love jihad. While most BJP-ruled states have laws against such forced conversions, plans are underway to make the provisions for punishment more stringent under the law by the Assam government. Listen in to Himanta Biswa Sarma.
Our government is in process of drafting a legislation which will give higher punishment for cases of Love Jihad. In Assam, this is rampant. People put their Hindu name in Facebook, lure a girl, and after marriage the girl discovered that the boy is not the same boy whom I married.
Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sharma has made some very important announcements saying that the state government will soon bring new legislation against what he claims is Love Jihad and Land Jihad. Now explaining it, he elaborated saying that the new legislation which is likely to be brought in the State Legislative Assembly in the ensuing monsoon session of the Assam Legislative Assembly later this month, and in this legislation he claims that there will be provision in the anti-Love Jihad legislation where there would be punishment which will amount to life imprisonment. Now explaining it, he goes on to say that there have been cases where people have withheld their religious identity in interfaith marriages, and that the state government feels should not be allowed, and therefore stringent legislation is going to be brought in. However, the main opposition party, the Congress, has criticized this move, saying that this is only a diversionary tactics of the state government. The state government doesn't want to speak about the key issues of inflation and the floods in the state. The state Congress chief had challenged the chief minister, asking that why is the chief minister not speaking on the promises made by the BJP in the 2021 Assam election vision document? Why is the BJP mum about it? That's what the Congress is now asking the chief minister. After the chief minister made this announcement, the chief minister also said that there is an observation by the state government that in many places indigenous communities are losing land, and therefore in areas like the Gwalpara district or the Borpeta or the likewise areas, there would be new legislation on land coming in where the state government would look into the interfaith land transfer, and the interfaith land transfer can't take place without the permission of the state government. The state government goes on to say, the chief minister goes on to say that he is not against voluntary land transfer between two people of two different faiths, but if there is a pressure being applied or there is some force applied in terms of selling of the land or the land transfer, then the state government will intervene. So many would see both this new proposed legislation as controversial, but the state government says that they're doing this in the interest of the women, in the interest of the indigenous communities. The state government is also going to amend the domicile policy, and the chief minister says that now on only those who are born in Assam will be eligible to apply for government jobs in Assam.
All right, we have more news now. 5 years ago, on August 5th, Article 370 was abrogated, which took away Jammu Kashmir's special status and statehood. The state was split into two union territories following its revocation, and the Jammu Kashmir unit of BJP is now today holding a rally to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Article 370 abrogation. Security has been beefed up in the region as a precautionary measure already to maintain law and order during the event. Now, opposition parties, including the Congress and PDP, have criticized the BJP for organizing the ceremony to celebrate Article 370 abrogation.
While BJP is today celebrating abrogation of Article 370, opposition parties are saying it is a dark day. Congress has said it is a dark day for Jammu and Kashmir because its statehood was smashed. So other regional parties as well. Ladakh, we have seen this uneasy calm in Ladakh for last several years. There have been, 4 years at least, there have been protests, hunger strikes demanding statehood and, 6th schedule. Which gives them almost the same powers which they use, rights which they used to enjoy under Article 370 and 35A. In the valley, there's tourism boom. But in Jammu, it is terrorism. It is infiltration. And while the valley has been, Sri Kashmir Valley, counting tourists, and in Jammu, it is for last more than 1 year, at least for last 3 years, we see counting infiltration attempts and see. Here at Lal Chowk, it is the normal day, like any other day. The days of shutdown are gone.
Well, shifting our focus now to some big breaking news now coming in. We're learning Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is likely to resign. Army chief has met political leaders in the country and he is also expected to address shortly. Well, Bangladesh crisis has spiraled and student protests are now threatening the Hasina government. Well, we are learning Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her sister have already been taken to a safe shelter as hundreds of protesters are demanding that she resign amid the deadly protests that are taking place in the country. What reports are suggesting at the moment is that Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is likely to resign, and the army chief is also expected to address a press conference shortly. Well, that is the latest coming in at this point in time. Meanwhile, the situation is quite tense in Bangladesh at this point in time, as we are learning. Well, mobile internet has been suspended. A curfew has been imposed in the wake of deadly protests that are taking place in Bangladesh. And the information that is coming out at this point in time is that Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has already been taken to a safe shelter as demand for her resignation have grown. Now, that is the latest coming in. We'll try and get more details in just a bit. Big breaking news coming in. There are widespread protests that are taking place in Bangladesh demanding PM Sheikh Hasina's resignation. And now the information that's coming in at this point in time is that Sheikh Hasina is all set to resign. Well, the army chief is also expected to address a press conference in a bit from now. Meanwhile, we'll try and get more details as to what the situation at the moment is. What we are learning is that Sheikh Hasina has reportedly left the Dhaka Palace as army chief is all set to address the nation. Students have been demanding resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina after police forces have killed a number of people across Bangladesh since this month. A large number of students have already hit the streets, have been on the streets as part of their long march to Dhaka, and the police has been firing tear gas shells at the protesters. Also, internet has been shut down for indefinite period in the country. Well, that is what we are learning of. We'll try and get more information in just a bit. The latest that we're getting at the moment is that the army chief is expected to address shortly.
Subsequently scrapped, it was pulled back, but the protest never died down. The protest continuing in several parts of Bangladesh and certainly in Dhaka. These are images from Dhaka where thousands of people have gathered for these protests, which have now intensified, with more than 100 people having lost their lives. Unofficial reports suggest that 300 odd lives have already been lost. The army has been taking a more proactive role, and there are now very strong reports that the Bangladeshi Prime Minister may already have stepped down or is stepping down, and that the army chief of Bangladesh is that the Bangladesh army chief is now going to quickly make an announcement. It also comes at a stage when what we are seeing is massive, thousands of people gathered over there in Bangladesh. As I mentioned, there's been violence. India has advised our nationals not to travel to Bangladesh as well. Let's go quickly across to NDTV's Ghazali, who's been tracking these developments. Ghazali, firstly, has she stepped down, Sheikh Hasina, or is that expected anytime now?
See, the local media reports are suggesting that Sheikh Hasina has stepped out and she has been moved to a safe house. Now, whether that safe house is in Dhaka but she has been moved out of her official residence is what the local media is reporting. And right now, the Chief of Bangladesh Army, General Waqaruzzama, is meeting with leaders of various political parties and prominent people. And this meeting is going on at the Army headquarters. Earlier, he was scheduled to address at around 1:30 p.m., the Bangladesh local time, but that address has not yet happened. And perhaps he is meeting all the prominent leaders of different political parties. And after that meeting, he is expected to address the nation.
Of other information, we've seen the loss of about 100 lives which have taken place. Is there a sense that that number might in fact be much lower than what it is?
Yes, because all the approach highways which are coming to Dhaka has been occupied by the protesters, because the call was given of march to Dhaka on August 6th, but it was then rescheduled by one of the groups which is spearheading this protest called Students Against Discrimination, and they had called this march to happen at around 12 p.m. On August 5, that is today. But when all the protesters from every city started marching towards Dhaka, they met the security forces on the way, and there have been reported clashes at multiple locations on highways which are connecting Dhaka to other cities. So injuries can go up. The exact number is not known because the internet has been suspended in most parts of the country, and most of the websites of the newspapers are also not accessible or operational. So the exact number of injuries for today is not known yet, but more than 91 people were killed as the last update came from Dhaka.
All right, Ghazali, we'll take a short break, but we'll continue to track this story very, very closely indeed. A massive political crisis in Bangladesh, with the Bangladeshi Prime Minister either having stepped down or in the process of stepping down, reportedly having been taken to a safe house at a time when tens of thousands of people have assembled in the Bangladeshi capital. She may be in a safe house right now. The army chief of Bangladesh expected to speak at any stage now, with student protests getting quite out of control. It all started as a result of a quota in government jobs which had been announced by which had been cleared in fact by the court. There was an effort by the court to actually roll that back. Initially, however, the Prime Minister endorsed that, and even though she did later on try and roll that back or announce the rollback, it was too late. Massive protests in a country where there is approximately a 30% unemployment rate for students who are otherwise qualified. That's what this is all about. We're going to take a short break and continue with this breaking news on the situation in Bangladesh.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Razr 50 Ultra comes with Google Gemini.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code, and driverless cars would be trapped in intersections. But even in this maze of the future, you can't wish away health. It's time to become more resilient. "10 years of Banega Swasth India, we have grown and achieved so many milestones. And now I have a plan to beat the urgency, to stop breathing with difficulty, to relieve getting choked with inactivity. Energize our government, our environment, our society, and ourselves. Everyone, everywhere, every day. Banega Swasth India. One world hygiene.
Hello and welcome to India Sense, where I speak with global opinion makers.
The United States has made a strategic decision over the last 20 years to move closer to India.
Now a $7 trillion economy seems a perfectly conceivable number.
If you want to be a national party, it's that you sort of accept the way the world is rather than want to endlessly hark back to how it was.
Modi is promoting the digitization of the economy, which is accelerating growth in the country.
Get ready for the ride of your life. NDTV brings you the NDTV Auto Show with me, Mugdha Mishra. From the fastest to supercars to the sleekest new energy vehicles to your trusted daily ride. We cover it all. Every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7. Your next great escape starts here.
The biggest democratic exercise in the world. Team NDTV covers it from ground zero.
BJP really had to fight a tough election this time.
Unprecedented exercise. Unmatched coverage.
There is no dispute. जनता को decide करना है.
From polling to counting, NDTV brought you the most trustworthy news and updates. Elections mean NDTV.
NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number one in both online and offline reach in India. Beating all its competition, NDTV stands for trust.
Welcome back. The big breaking news story. We are tracking a political crisis in Dhaka, Bangladesh, with the government about to fall. Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister, reportedly in a safe house at this stage, apparently may have already stepped down as Prime Minister of the country after the active involvement of the army, which has now moved in with tens of thousands of people protesters out on the streets of Dhaka, as that situation with regard to protests, which has already resulted in the loss of more than 100 lives, gets progressively more and more out of control. The army chief has been meeting political leaders and, as I understand it, at this stage is expected to address a press conference anytime now. Sources at this juncture, and we can use that word sources, indicating that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina Wajid has resigned. The press conference by the army chief could take place at any stage now. As I mentioned, more than 100 people have died. Internet has been suspended. A curfew has been put in place. These are as a result of student protests. What exactly is this all about? Well, several weeks back, the Bangladesh High Court, the Supreme Court in Bangladesh actually allowed certain reservations in government jobs to continue to be granted to those who were the relatives or the next of kin of those who had served in the war for independence. This resulted in massive protests in the country because the quota in jobs was a whopping 30%. In a country which has a significant unemployment rate, this resulted in protests, student protests, who said that this had to go. And even though the court did roll this back, and the government in fact announced that this was being rolled back, it didn't stop the intensity of the protests. The Prime Minister said she would take action against the protesters. The army said that, however, yesterday, and this was a significant statement by the army, when they actually said that they would stand by the people, and this may well have been a first sign that in fact the Bangladesh army was going to go against the Prime Minister. At this stage, it's a law and order crisis. We don't really know who's in charge. This is a major South Asian country, a very populous country, law and order completely out of control. But at this juncture, there are indicators that the Prime Minister may have stepped down or may have been forced to resign, with the army now essentially in touch. Let's get Ghazali back on the phone line if we can. But let me just give you the latest update that we have at this stage. What we were reporting as 100 dead, there are some indicators that the death toll in Bangladesh in terms of these protests has actually gone up to 300 odd who have lost their lives. In terms of a few more details, what we are seeing now on our screen is a long march into Dhaka by protesters. Remember, a lot of people in Bangladesh are only by word of mouth at this juncture getting to know about these protests. The government, as a means of ensuring that these protests don't get completely out of hand, has suspended the internet. There is a curfew which has been announced. The demand of these students is one and one only: the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina must step down. The army has introduced a curfew in Dhaka that took place from last night, an indefinite curfew that has not stopped these protesters from coming in, that has not stopped the violence or the clashes, which began once again with great deal more ferocity yesterday morning. Protesters were attending the non-cooperation program under the banner of the Students Against Discrimination with a one-point agenda. Ms. Hasina has to step down. What is this all about? We'll explain this to you with a great deal of detail. My colleague Vishal joins us now. Vishal, firstly, what are you hearing? Has the Prime Minister stepped down? Is she being kept in safe custody? Will there be a press conference soon?
So as we speak, there are different reports coming in. There are several international media. They're saying that Bangladeshi PM Sheikh Hasina has resigned indeed. But so far, there's no confirmation from the ground. International media, as I mentioned earlier, they are reporting that. And also some other reports are saying that she has already left the country or she's on the way out of the country. She has either gone to London or she could have also, gone to some other country. So confirmation is remaining, but reports are suggesting that she has stepped down after days and weeks of protests, violent protests. At least 300 to 350 people have been killed ever since the protests were sparked last month, mid-July. Students were demanding, scaling back of quotas, and they had gotten some kind of relief in that area. But the protests started again yesterday when students said that they want the ouster of the government. They wanted the PM to resign. In a short while from now, the Army Chief of Bangladesh is also set to address a press conference that will give us details as to what exactly has happened. Has she resigned? Has Sheikh Hasina's iron fist rule finally come to an end? All of that will be probably answered when Army Chief of Bangladesh addresses that conference.
So Vishal, let's talk a little bit about what this is all about. There has been a lot of protests across Bangladesh after a quota system for government jobs was reintroduced. It was actually cleared by a court. Sheikh Hasina, of course, endorsed it. And even though there was a rollback, it seems that these protesters aren't satisfied.
That is true. So beforehand, the quota was about of 40%. Then it was scaled back down to about 5% by the Supreme Court of Bangladesh a few weeks ago. That was done in the wake of the violent protest, which had killed about 200 people. So after that, the protesters had quieted down a bit. But in the last few days, they seem to have gathered momentum. A new student organization had come up and they had called for a nationwide protest and called for the ouster of the government and asked for a nationwide movement, which was started yesterday. And it was supposed to be a 10-day. It is supposed to be a 10-day movement starting yesterday. So in just one day of that movement, more than 100 people have reportedly been killed. A lot of women, children, a lot of police personnel have been killed. About 15 odd police personnel were killed just yesterday. So all of that happening within the space of just 48 hours. And now it seems that, however, there's no confirmation as yet, but it seems that PM of Bangladesh has finally resigned.
All right, Vishal, I'm just going to, Ghazali, you're on air. Can you just be ready for that? At least 98 people were killed yesterday alone. The death toll, AFP reporting in Bangladesh, is at 300 at this stage. The Bangladesh High Court ruled in favor of reinstating a 30% quota in government jobs for descendants of freedom fighters. That's what this is all about. Ghazali, what is the latest that you're picking up about Sheikh Hasina?
See, we are being told from local agencies that she has left her official residence, but her location is not known yet. Rumors arrived that perhaps she has also left Bangladesh. That's not confirmed. Some images of her close to a chopper is being circulating on the social media. That's unverified for now. And right now, what we can report is that thousands of protesters have reached Dhaka, and they are trying to break into Sheikh Hasina's official residence. Now, amid all
that is the latest news that we are getting, and both of you just reflect on this. Thousands of protesters have stormed the palace of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, is what AFP is now reporting. Bangladesh's Channel 24 has been broadcasting images of crowds entering the Premier's official residence. We're just going to stick to this channel. Let's listen to what they're saying, and I'll try and translate.
মানুষকে ছুঁয়ে যায়
দর্শক আপনারা স্ক্রিনে দেখতে পাচ্ছেন চ্যানেল 24 এর পর্দায় এক্সক্লুসিভ দেখতে পাচ্ছেন যে সাধারণ মানুষের যে অভিব্যক্তি সেটা কিন্তু ফুটে উঠেছে। সাধারণ মানুষ ঘুরে বেড়াচ্ছে গণভবনের ভেতরে এবং
মজার ব্যাপার হচ্ছে এই মাঠে আমি সাংবাদিক হিসেবে আমার সুযোগ হয়েছিল, অনেকের যাওয়ার সুযোগ হয় না, তাদের জন্য আজকে গেট খোলা, সম্পূর্ণ দরজা খোলা।
যাদের গণভবন যাওয়ার সুযোগ
The gates have been opened up for ordinary people who otherwise don't have the ability of entering this. As I understand it, the images that you are seeing are from the Prime Minister's residence. There is ransacking that is now taking place. These people are walking off with chairs from the official residence of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina.
এটা আসলে মানুষের আবেগ, এটা এই মানুষকে আসলে থামানো মুশকিল। তবে যাদের রক্তের উপর দিয়ে আজকের এই অর্জন, তাদের কথা পৃথিবীর ইতিহাসে, বাংলাদেশের ইতিহাসে জল করবে। 24-এর এই আন্দোলন, অনেকেই ফেসবুকে অনেক কিছু লিখতে পারেন না, এই সব কিছুই মানুষ মনে রাখবে। গণমাধ্যমে অনেক কিছুই আমরা যারা আসলে অনেক কিছুই দেখাতে পারিনি, সেটিও মানুষ মনে রাখবে।
Forever, says the commentator on Bangladesh 24 now. The protests which are taking place now are historic.
সেনাপ্রধান জেনারেল ওয়াকারুজ্জামান তিনি অন্যান্য বিভিন্ন রাজনৈতিক দলের সাথে বৈঠক করছেন।
The army chief is meeting political leaders from various parties at this stage.
ডক্টর আসিফ নজরুল সহ আরো ডক্টর হোসেন জিল্লুর, তাদের সাথেও বৈঠক করছেন। আমরা
Several meetings taking place with opposition and other leaders. Right now, the army chief, the Bangladeshi army, is leading these.
গেছেন কি ধরনের সিদ্ধান্ত আসে সেটি আমরা হয়তো কিছুক্ষণের মধ্যেই জানবো।
What decision is finally taken by them is something we'll get to know very soon.
2টার সময় একটা ব্রিফিং হবে এবং ওই ব্রিফিং এর তারপরে হচ্ছে যে আমরা পরিষ্কার হব, কিন্তু সেই ব্রিফিংটা আসলে সেটি পেছানো হয়েছে। আমরা পরে আবার শুনলাম সেটি 3টায়, এখন 3:30 বাজে প্রায়। এখন পর্যন্ত আমরা সেটি
The meeting has been delayed somewhat. A press briefing has been delayed somewhat by approximately half an hour. They said that it would take place at 3 p.m. Bangladesh time, which I think Bangladesh is half an hour ahead of us. That has been pushed to 3:30 p.m. is what is being said. So, irrespective, that important announcement has been delayed.
এটি একটি ঐতিহাসিক মুহূর্ত, আসলে এটি ঐতিহাসিক। এই সময়গুলো, এই গত 30টা দিন বাংলাদেশে যা ঘটেছে, আজকে জুলাই মাসের 36, তাই না? 36 জুলাই। যারা আন্দোলনকারী তারা বারবার এটি বলছিলেন,
আন্দোলনকারী এই নতুন জেনারেশনের যে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা যারা বিক্ষোভের ডাক দিয়েছিল, যারা প্রতিবাদ করেছিল শুরু থেকে, তারা এই জুলাই মাসটিকে বলেছে যে শেষ হয়নি, যে যারা শহীদ হয়েছেন তাদের উদ্দেশ্যে তারা বর্ণনা করেছেন এভাবে।
The month of July, they never felt that the protests actually ended, and this is the culmination of the protests which started at that stage.
এবং সেই সাথে আমরা দেখছি দর্শক, এই মুহূর্তে আমরা স্ক্রিনে যেটি দেখছি,
এই আন্দোলন সম্পর্কে আপনারা নিশ্চয়ই জানেন দর্শক, যেখান থেকে শুরু কোটা আন্দোলন, কোটা সংস্কার আন্দোলন, কোটা বিরোধী আন্দোলন, বিভিন্ন রকমের নাম দিতে পারেন, কিন্তু মূলত ছিল এটি ছাত্র আন্দোলন।
This is a students' protest. It is a protest against the quota which was announced. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what's taking place right now. The images on the left-hand side, as I understand it, maybe from the residence, the official residence of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, or a part of her residence. She has been taken into safety. There is an announcement which is expected to take place anytime now. Okay, there's a helicopter in the air right now. I'm being told that might be one of the helicopters which is being used to ferry out possibly Sheikh Hasina or other people in her government. So that's a Mi-17 helicopter of the Bangladesh Air Force. The Prime Minister might actually be in that, being moved out of Dhaka, or at least one part of Dhaka, and being taken to safety. The protesters have stormed into her residence. They've been making off with chairs that we saw on our screens. Let's continue to listen in to commentary as, once again, I repeat, these are images of a Mi-17 helicopter of the Bangladesh Air Force, which has been used possibly to have Sheikh Hasina out. listening in. That's a sofa. People are on rickshaws and taking them away. All right, these are remarkable images that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. As I understand it, this is the official residence of the Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. There's a real crisis in the country right now. The Bangladesh government has collapsed. Sheikh Hasina has been flown away by a military helicopter, it now appears. People have been ransacking her house. These are student protests over a quota which was introduced for government jobs, who've been continuing to protest. Even though the quota was rolled back, there was no stopping the protests. 100 people were killed yesterday in the violence. As many as 300 people, some reports suggest, have lost their lives already. On your right are images from her premise, from the compound, and inside images on the left-hand side of your screen. At least 98 people were killed on Sunday, as I mentioned, because of these violent clashes. AFP reporting that 300 people are dead. This according to police and medical sources. Bangladesh has a curfew right now. Despite that curfew, these protests continue to take place. On the left-hand side of your screen, there's an image of a helicopter that you'll see. There are some suggestions that that is the helicopter that she took to be escorted out of the national capital. What are these protests all about? They began last month when the Bangladesh High Court ruled in favor of reinstating a 30% quota in government jobs for relatives or descendants of freedom fighters. After the Prime Minister refused to meet student demands to reverse the order, the protests intensified, which led to clashes with police and government supporting groups. Earlier on, 200 people were killed. That number went up by nearly 100 yesterday. Many were injured when the protests began in right earnest in July. The government, as a result of all of this, has cut off connectivity through broadband or internet. That was apparently announced for a period of 11 days at this juncture. We don't know if that internet is up in Dhaka at the moment. It was restored a little later. The protests had reduced for a while as talks began with the government, but started again as students called for a nationwide civil disobedience movement. They asked the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to step down from her position. They were demanding a public apology from Hasina for the deaths and the removal of several of her ministers. That was a secondary demand. They also want the government to reopen schools and universities which had been closed since the protests intensified. But the situation now on the streets of the Bangladeshi capital, Dhaka, completely out of control. Sheikh Hasina, as we understand it, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, has been flown out of the national capital. There's pilfering that is taking place in her official residence. People inside and outside her home. Bangladesh, Channel 24 Bangladesh, who we were listening to, describing the sentiments of these protesters, saying that this was a historic day in the history of Bangladesh. Let's just listen into what's happening now and I'll translate.
Dr. হোসেন জিল্লুরের কথা আমরা শুনেছি। এছাড়াও বিভিন্ন রাজনৈতিক দলের সিনিয়র নেতৃবৃন্দ তাদেরকেও তারা ডেকেছেন।
The army has called meetings with several opposition leaders, and the commentator naming some of those leaders from the opposition, presumably the government as well, who will be meeting with the army. We expect an army press conference. Last I heard that press conference has been delayed.
চালানো হবে বা ঘোষণাটা কিভাবে দেয়া হবে সবকিছুই হয়তো তিনি একটা পরিষ্কার ধারণা হয়তো দিবেন। গণভবনের যেই ছবি আপনারা দেখছেন এটি আসলে ঐতিহাসিক, কারণ এই গণভবন বহু কিছু সাক্ষী। গত 2000 সম্ভবত আমি যদি মনে করতে পারি 2013।
All right, these images were coming from Ganabhavan in Dhaka. Ganabhavan, as I understand it, the official residence of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. It is the official residence of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. That commentator saying that the images were historic, but again, playing out that one image, that one small video again in loop. That Mi-17 helicopter apparently was the one which, as I understand it, took Sheikh Hasina to safety. Where she's been taken, we don't know at this stage, but she has fled. She's been escorted to safety, with the Bangladesh crisis now escalating out of proportion completely. The Prime Minister being taken out of Dhaka. The images from Ganabhavan, and let's have those images out once again, is the official residence of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. It's located in the north corner of the National Parliament House, which is in turn located in Shere Bangla Nagar in Dhaka. After independence, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman worked in Bongo Bobhon, which is located on Minto Road. So that was another place. This was created more recently. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina moved into Ganabhavan on the 6th of March 2010, more than a year after she'd been elected. So that is a relatively new official. Let's just listen into what's taking place. All right, apologies. These are earlier images of. Let's have these images out since they seem to convey a wrong picture right now. Those were earlier file pictures of Sheikh Hasina, who is now nowhere to be seen after she's been moved out by helicopter. Let's have those images up of Ganabhavan once again. Listen to that commentary once again. To give you an idea of the looting which is taking place, of pilfering that is taking place. The commentary over there which we heard was of students, was of people saying that this was the gates were completely closed of this official residence. They've been thrown open. Even the tone of the commentary indicated angst and anger at Sheikh Hasina. Let's listen in.
এখনো হয়তো ছাড়ার চেষ্টা করবেন বা করছেন এবং অনেকেই হয় আমরা যখন সাংবাদিকতার দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি থেকে বলি যে অনেকেই এইটা বিশ্বাস করতেন না যে শেখ হাসিনা সরকারের কোনো সময় পতন হবে এবং এটা অবিশ্বাস্য তারা মনে করতেন সেই জায়গায় তারা একটা প্রমাণ হয়তো পেলেন যে না সবকিছুরই একটা শেষ আছে সবকিছুর একটা শেষ হয়
All right, so the commentator over there saying that it is that people earlier on in Dhaka and in Bangladesh could never believe that Sheikh Hasina would cease to be in power, but the gates have been thrown open, people are inside, and this is proof, and this is testimony to the fact that this is something that can happen and is happening. The images on the right-hand side of your screen, dramatic images of protesters inside the official residence of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, making way, walking off with chairs and sofas, which we've seen, putting them onto rickshaws and taking them away. I mean, utensils being taken away as well. And the image on the left, apparently, of a helicopter used by Sheikh Hasina to be evacuated out of that area. I'm joined now by my colleague Saurabh Gupta, who with more on this. Saurabh, go ahead.
Well, Ganabhavan, of course, was breached a few perhaps minutes ago, and of course Sheikh Hasina was before that airlifted to a safer location, given that the protesters had defied curfew and were marching in Dhaka. Now this, of course, is an unfolding situation. Political stability in Dhaka right now is the word that perhaps everybody is talking about, given the fact that the Prime Minister has been airlifted. We don't know what happens next, because we're all waiting, like you said, for that press conference of the army chief, where of course what next for Bangladesh is going to be revealed, with the army chief speaking to the nation. But before that, what we've seen is Sheikh Hasina and her family members, including her sister, have been airlifted from Ganabhavan. A little before actually it was breached by these protesters. The images of Ganabhavan being breached are quite of course dramatic, as you were explaining, people walking off with stuff. But Ganabhavan is, let me tell you, a highly guarded, high security residence, official residence of Sheikh Hasina. It used to be her residence till at least a few hours ago. She was airlifted from there, given the fact that this kind of a situation was anticipated, and she's now, of course, been airlifted. Destination unknown is what we are being given to understand from local media reports and our sources in Bangladesh. But she has been moved to a safer location, as Ganabhavan, the official residence of the Prime Minister, has been breached by protesters who defied curfew to march through the streets of Dhaka this morning. And of course, like we said, this was of course planned action. There was of course that curfew, but there was also the understanding that in all likelihood that curfew was going to be breached, as lakhs of protesters were to actually gather there. And now of course we have images of Ganabhavan being breached, with Sheikh Hasina having left Ganabhavan in a military helicopter, airlifted to a safer location.
Saurabh, I'm just going to go through a couple of the main points over here. I'm going to come back to you and just describe with me what is exactly taking place. The latest news that we have at this stage is that Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, has been moved to safety. Her house has been ransacked. Protesters are in the premises of Ganabhavan, that is the official residence of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Some reports suggest, may have actually fled the country. Is she in India? That's a question that really does need to be asked at this stage. We do not know. Protesters have stormed the Prime Minister's palace. The Prime Minister's son has appealed to security forces. The Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's son, Sajib Wajid, said in a social media post, your duty is to keep our people safe and our country safe and to uphold the constitution. It means don't allow any unelected government